Dynamic EQ versus multi-band compressor. What's the difference and when to use each one? Well, that's an old question, and I think there are lots of videos on YouTube explaining when to use each one. But I think that debate is quite obsolete because in 2026 we have more options to discuss. I think there are 4 categories of tools you should know, not just 2. In the next minutes, I'm going to break down what each one actually does, when to use which, and how. My name is Eduardo Juliato. I've been producing psytrance since 2009, and if you're serious about bringing your mixes to the next level, you should consider subscribing to my new course, Psytrance Mixdown Mastery. The link is in the description. Quick recap, so we're on the same page, right? First, dynamic EQ. A dynamic EQ is an equalizer that only engages when a certain frequency reaches a certain level, a threshold. So the filter is just waiting here and only kicks in when there's a problem to solve. If not, it stays there, just resting. On the other hand, the multiband compressor splits the signal of your track the moment you load it. Even when nothing is compressing, the crossover points are active. It's a process in series. It means it will affect your sound, compressing or not, because these crossover points cause phase shifting. And sometimes we want that phase shifting, especially on bass. And that's the basic difference. But nowadays, there are more categories that don't fit in those definitions. For example, tool number 1, the mid-side dynamic EQ. In FabFilter Pro Q4, for example, in each band I can choose mid or side. For example, I have this atmospheres group. I could set my kick drum as a sidechain, and here I can set a band only mid, and I'll compress dynamically only the mid, leaving the sides untouched and making this atmosphere sit very well with my kick drum. For example, here and here, I would do a band like this, turn on this toggle, and set the threshold here. So I have a very special sidechain only in the mids. And the sides are untouched. I could even enhance the sides a little, choosing just a side band here and dynamically. This band is not engaged by the sidechain, it's a free. It's only reacting to its own signal. Without and with. Interesting, isn't it? The second tool is the multiband compressor. It's very close to the dynamic EQ nowadays, but I think the biggest difference is the need, the situation. For example, I would use a multiband like this to tone shaping, mostly in buzz groups or sometimes individual channels, but mostly in buzz groups of channels like drums. I could bring, for example, to this drum group less energy in the high mids and highs and more power in the body. It was like this. You can see, you can feel the snare more strong and less energy in the high mids and highs. But if I wanted to just uh, eliminate some specific frequencies here or here, I would go to the dynamic EQ, for example. And the third category is the resonance suppressor, like Soothe 2, Soothe 3. It's uh, a new release. I have the Baby Audio Smooth Operator, and there's this free plugin, Anina, which is very cool. You can download. This category of plugins are called dynamic resonance filters. What they do, they will look at the resonant peaks in your spectrum and reduce them dynamically only when they hit. So that's why they are called intelligent equalizers. You just put on your channel and let it work. For example, in this lead group, look at this. It finds the resonance peaks around my spectrum and reduces automatically. But you should take care and not exaggerate, because if not, your sound gets too thin and too dry, too weird. We can use to reduce some harshness. I could use a dynamic EQ, but this is much more precise. And the tool number 4, if you have the Plugin Alliance subscription, is the spectral multiband, I would say. This is not a multiband compressor, neither a dynamic EQ, nor a resonance suppressor. It's a weird beast. And what's the difference? Well, where a normal multiband compressor has 3 or 4 or 6 bands, this one has hundreds. So it analyzes the spectral envelope of your audio and applies compression band by band. So imagine you have 1,000 bands. In practice, it means that you have the dynamic control of a multiband compressor with the transparency of a dynamic EQ, but without the side effects of both. So there's no fixed crossover points, there's no phase shift, because the bands adapt to the content they are receiving. So instead of focusing on fixed bands or individual frequencies that you choose on a dynamic EQ, for example, it analyzes the entire spectrum in a very high resolution using FFT. Then it creates a dynamic spectral target. So instead of saying reduce 3 kilohertz by 2 dB, you say bring the track to this tonal balance. So it's a tonal balance tool, I would say. So I can capture a scene, press here. Now I have this shape, and when I set the threshold, whenever the signal exceeds this threshold, it brings back, but only in that frequency. Crazy, isn't it? Because if I was using, for example, a compressor, a normal compressor, it would catch first the low frequency peaks because they're higher in energy. And the point is, I can do a very strong, ridiculous, exaggerated compression. I'll compensate with the gain and a ridiculous ratio. And it sounds very transparent. And once I have a curve, I can save my preset, or I can, for example, have a reference track. I set the Captain Hook here, and now I have the tonal balance, the spectrum shape of my reference track, so I can match. So to me, it's a dynamic sculptor. It's clean, it's transparent, it's easy to use, and it brings very good results. So when to use each of these plugins? For example, you have a specific resonance peak that pops out sometimes only. You can choose a dynamic EQ. Transparent, only engaged when needed. You want to shape the dynamics of a certain band consistently during the music. Multiband compressor. If you have harshness, sibilance, or self-oscillating resonance, showing up at different spots in spectrum over time, go for a resonance suppressor like Anina or Soothe 2 or 3. If you want to glue the full mix and shape the entire tonal balance, go for spectral multiband. I only know this one from Pro Audio DSP. Not sure if there's any other plugin in the same category. This is not a free plugin, but it's worth it. Okay, dynamic EQ for surgical problems, multi-band compressor for buzz level shape, resonance suppressors for harshness and sibilances, and spectral multiband for full band tonal balance. These four tools together will bring your mix to the next level. And this is the type of thing I teach inside my course, Psytrance Mixdown Mastery. 16 lessons walking through my two-phase method of mixing psytrance. Link in the description if you want to check it out. Either way, subscribe to the channel for more contents like this. See you next time.